The throne room of the Vermian Empire stretched out like a cathedral of war. Weapons from 1,000 conquered worlds hung on the walls. The floor was made of black stone that reflected the red lights above. At the far end, Queen Haiwan sat on her throne, 8 feet of muscle and natural armor plating. She had 4 arms, each one strong enough to crush steel. Her skin had a blue-gray tone that seemed to shimmer in the light. Taemin walked down the long hall toward her. His footsteps echoed in the silence. He wore simple diplomatic robes from Earth, dark blue with silver trim. Next to him walked Ambassador Daewon, an older man with gray hair and calm eyes. Behind them, 6 Vermian guards stood watching. Each guard was twice the size of the humans. The humans looked tiny in this massive room. Taemin stood at 5'9", average for a human male. But here, among the Vermian, he looked like a child. The guards whispered to each other in their language. Taemin heard the words clearly. They were calling him soft skin and little thing. He kept his face neutral and continued walking. When they reached the throne, both humans bowed. It was a respectful bow, not too deep. They were representatives of Earth, after all. They had dignity to maintain. "Welcome, humans," Haiwan said. Her voice was deep and carried power. "You have traveled far to seek our protection." "We seek an alliance, Your Majesty," Taemin replied. His voice was steady and clear. "Not protection, but partnership." A ripple of laughter went through the Vermian nobles who lined the sides of the throne room. One of them, a 4-armed general with scars across her face, stepped forward. This was General Nari, the Queen's chief military advisor. "Partnership?" Nari said with amusement. "What can your kind possibly offer us? You have no natural armor, no claws, no strength to speak of. You would break like glass in real combat." Taemin met her eyes without flinching. "We offer technology, resources, and strategic thinking. Earth has survived for millions of years because we adapt, we learn, we overcome." "Pretty words," Nari said, "but words don't win wars. The Ravager swarms are coming. When they arrive, your soft bodies will be torn apart in seconds." "That is why we seek to stand together," Daewon interjected smoothly. "The Ravagers have already destroyed 3 human colonies. They are a threat to all intelligent life. Alone we struggle. Together we can stand strong." Haiwan raised one hand, and the room fell silent. She studied Taemin with interest. Her eyes, which were a deep golden color, seemed to see right through him. "You are the lead diplomat?" she asked. "I am," Taemin confirmed. "You are very calm for someone so fragile." There was curiosity in her voice, not cruelty. "Most species tremble when they first meet the Vermian, but you stand here as if you belong." "I represent Earth," Taemin said simply. "I cannot afford to show weakness, even if I feel it." Something shifted in Haiwan's expression. It might have been respect. "Interesting," she murmured. The negotiations took 3 days. Taemin and Daewon met with the Vermian Council repeatedly. They discussed trade agreements, military cooperation, and resource sharing. The Vermian wanted access to Earth's advanced computer systems and medical technology. Earth wanted the protection of the Vermian fleet and access to their mining operations on mineral-rich worlds. During these meetings, Taemin noticed something. The Vermian valued strength above everything else. They respected warriors. They honored battle. But they did not understand subtlety or strategy. Their military tactics were straightforward: overwhelm the enemy with superior force. It worked for them because they were incredibly strong. But Taemin saw vulnerabilities in their approach. He said nothing about this. Not yet. On the evening of the 3rd day, Haiwan summoned Taemin to her private chambers. He went alone, as requested. The guards at her door looked at him with suspicion, but let him pass. The Queen's chambers were surprisingly simple. There were weapons on the walls, yes, but also books and star maps. A large window showed the planet below, with its 3 moons hanging in the purple sky. HFY stood by the window. She had removed her ceremonial armor and wore simpler clothing. She still looked imposing, but somehow more approachable. "Your people need this alliance desperately," she said without turning around. "The Ravagers will not stop. They consume everything in their path." "Yes," Taemin agreed. There was no point in lying. "And yet you negotiate as if you have other options, as if you could walk away." She turned to face him. "Why?" "Because desperation makes for bad agreements," Taemin replied. "If we appear too weak, too needy, we become a burden rather than an ally. Neither of us wants that." HFY laughed. It was a genuine sound. "You are clever, little diplomat. I like that." She moved closer to him, studying him with those golden eyes. "But there is a problem. The Vermian Council does not trust your kind. They think you are too weak to be worth the effort." "And what do you think?" Taemin asked. "I think—" She paused, considering her words. "I think there is more to humans than meets the eye. You are calm under pressure. You speak with confidence. You do not beg or plead. These are traits of a warrior, not a weakling." "I am a diplomat," Taemin said. "Perhaps. But you were something else before that. I can tell." She circled him slowly, all 4 arms crossed. "The Council demands proof of commitment. In Vermian tradition, alliances between empires are sealed with a mate bond between rulers." Taemin kept his face carefully neutral. "A mate bond. A marriage in your terms," HFY explained. "It ensures that both sides have something precious to lose if the alliance breaks. It creates family ties between our peoples." "You want to marry me?" Taemin asked directly. "I am proposing it, yes." HFY stopped in front of him. "You would become my consort. You would live here, in the palace. You would have a voice in decisions that affect both our worlds, and the alliance would be secured." Taemin was silent for a moment. He was thinking through the implications. This was more than a political marriage. It was a statement. It would tie Earth's fate directly to the Vermian throne. It was also dangerous. If anything happened to him, it could destabilize everything, but it might be the only way to save Earth. "I accept," he said finally. HFY seemed surprised by how quickly he agreed. "You do not need time to think? To consult with your superiors?" "My superiors gave me full authority to negotiate," Taemin replied, "and I understand what is at stake. If this is what secures the alliance, then I will do it." "You would bind yourself to an alien queen for your people?" There was something almost tender in her voice. "I would," Taemin said simply. HFY reached out with one hand and gently touched his face. Her hand was large and rough, but her touch was careful. "You are braver than you look, Taemin of Earth." The ceremony happened 2 days later. It was a Vermian ritual, full of ancient words and symbolic gestures. Taemin stood before the entire court, looking impossibly small next to his new mate. The Vermian nobles watched with mixed feelings. Some seemed amused. Others seemed disturbed. General Nari watched with open skepticism. As the ceremony concluded, she leaned toward another officer and whispered, "The queen has taken a pet, not a mate." But HFY did not seem to care what others thought. When the ritual ended, she placed a hand on Taemin's shoulder and addressed her people. "This human is now one of us," she declared. "He is under my protection. Anyone who harms him answers to me." That night, in their shared quarters, HFY asked Taemin about Earth. "Tell me about your world," she said. "What is it like?" "Beautiful," Taemin said, "but dangerous. We have learned to survive in many different environments. Deserts, jungles, frozen wastelands. We adapt. Your people must be strong to survive such variety, HFY observed. We are, Taemin agreed quietly, in our own way. Outside the window, the stars shone bright. Somewhere out there, the Ravager swarms were moving closer. The alliance was formed. The bond was sealed. But the real test was still to come. 3 months had passed since the bonding ceremony. Taemin had settled into life at the palace, though it was far from easy. The Vermians still viewed him as a curiosity. Some were kind, most were indifferent, and a few were openly dismissive. Every morning, Taemin woke before dawn. HFY would already be gone, attending to military drills or strategy meetings. He would dress in simple clothes and make his way to a private courtyard in the palace gardens. There, he would exercise. The Vermian guards who patrolled the area found it amusing. They would watch as this small human did his strange movements. Push-ups, sit-ups, running in place, stretching. To them, it looked like a child playing at being strong. "Look at the little soft skin," one guard said to another. "He thinks those tiny movements will make him a warrior." They laughed and moved on. What they didn't understand was that Taemin was maintaining something. His body was a tool, and tools needed care. Every movement was precise. Every exercise had a purpose. He was not trying to become stronger than a Vermian. That would be impossible. But he was keeping himself ready. For what? The guards did not know. Taemin did not explain. After his morning routine, he would spend hours in the palace archives. HFY had given him access to all their records. She thought he was learning about Vermian culture and history. She was right, but that was not all he was studying. Taemin read about Vermian military tactics. He studied their battles, their victories, their rare defeats. He learned how they thought about war. It was always direct, always about overwhelming force. They were excellent at what they did, but they had blind spots. Ambassador Daewon would join him sometimes. The older man would sit across from Taemin in the quiet archive rooms, and they would speak in low voices. "The Ravager fleets are getting closer," Daewon said one afternoon. "Our scouts report they will reach the border systems within weeks." "The Vermian are preparing," Taemin replied. "I have seen the fleet assembling in orbit." "Are they ready?" Taemin paused. "They are powerful. But they fight the way they always fight. If the Ravagers adapt, it could be a problem." Daewon nodded slowly. "Should we say something?" "Not yet," Taemin said. "They would not listen. We are still the weak ones in their eyes. We need to wait." In the afternoons, Taemin attended diplomatic functions. He met with Vermian nobles, trade officials, and military officers. He was always polite, always calm, always smiling. He played the role they expected, the soft human who was out of his depth but trying his best. Most of them treated him with bemused tolerance. He was the queen's mate, so they had to be respectful, but they did not take him seriously. One person was different. A young Vermian warrior named Wu Jin had been assigned to the palace guard. He was smaller than most Vermian, only 7 feet tall, and he had a kind face. He would often talk with Taemin when their paths crossed. "The others mock you," Wu Jin said one day as they walked through the palace halls. "It bothers me." "It does not bother me," Taemin replied truthfully. "Let them think what they want." "But you are the consort. You deserve respect." Taemin smiled. "Respect is earned, Wu Jin, not demanded. In time, they will see things differently." "You are very patient," Wu Jin observed. "I have learned to be." In the evenings, Taemin would dine with HFY. These were private moments, away from the court and the judgment of others. The queen would tell him about her day, about the military preparations, about the stress of command. Taemin would listen and offer quiet observations, nothing too bold, nothing that would seem like he was questioning her authority. Just gentle suggestions, carefully worded. Hei-Wan found his presence calming. She had grown genuinely fond of him. He was not like her warriors, all aggression and pride. He was steady, thoughtful, and surprisingly insightful. But she still saw him as fragile, something to be protected. "The Ravagers will be here soon," she said one evening. They were sitting on the balcony of their quarters, looking up at the stars. "When the battle comes, you will stay in the secure bunker. I have given orders." "I would prefer to be with you," Taemin said carefully. "Absolutely not." Hei-Wan's voice was firm. "You have no combat training. You would be killed in seconds." Taemin did not argue. He simply nodded. "As you wish." Hei-Wan softened. She reached over and took his hand in one of hers. "I do not say this to insult you. I say it because I care for you. You are important to me, Taemin. I will not risk losing you." "I understand," he said. But behind his calm expression, Taemin was thinking. When the battle came, he would not hide in a bunker. He could not. It went against everything he was. The warning came 3 days later. Vermian scouts had detected the Ravager fleet. It was massive, far larger than expected. Hundreds of ships, all moving in perfect coordination. The palace erupted into action. Warriors armed themselves. Fleet commanders rushed to their vessels. The great war machines of the Vermian Empire roared to life. General Nari convened an emergency war council. Hei-Wan attended, and to everyone's surprise, Taemin followed her in. Nari looked at him with open annoyance. "This is a military strategy session, soft skin. You should not be here." "He is my mate," Hei-Wan said sharply. "He stays." Nari's jaw tightened, but she said nothing more. The holographic display activated, showing the Ravager fleet approaching. It was a swarm of red dots, moving toward the Vermian homeworld. "We will meet them at the border systems," Nari said. "A full frontal assault with our main battle fleet. We outnumber them in heavy cruisers." Taemin studied the display quietly. He could see the problem immediately. The Ravagers were not moving like a traditional fleet. They were moving in a pattern, a coordinated swarm that could shift and adapt. "May I ask a question?" Taemin said. Nari glared at him. "What?" "The Ravagers are not engaging your border defenses. They are going around them." "Why would they do that?" "Because they are cowards," another officer said with contempt. "They fear our strength." "Or," Taemin said carefully, "they are avoiding a fight they do not need. If their goal is to reach the homeworld, engaging the border fleets would slow them down and cost them ships. They are being efficient." The room was silent. Nari's expression darkened. "Are you suggesting we do not know how to read enemy movements?" "I am suggesting that these enemies think differently than the ones you are used to fighting," Taemin replied. His voice remained calm and respectful. "They do not care about honor or tradition. They care about winning." "And what would you suggest, human?" Nari's tone was mocking. Taemin looked at the display again. "If they bypass the border systems, they will reach here in 4 days. You should position your fleet in defensive formations around the homeworld, not chase them through open space. Force them to come to you, where your defensive platforms can support your ships." Nari laughed. It was a harsh sound. "Defensive formations? We are Vermian. We do not hide behind defenses. We attack." "Sometimes the strongest position is the one you choose, not the one your enemy forces you into," Taemin said. "Enough." Nari dismissed him with a wave. "You have never seen real combat, soft skin. Do not presume to teach us war." Taemin said nothing more. He simply looked at Hei-Wan. She met his eyes, and for a moment, something passed between them. She had heard his words. She was considering them. But in the end, tradition won. "We will proceed with the assault plan," Hei-Wan announced. "The Vermian do not cower. We meet our enemies head-on." The council dispersed. As Taemin and Hei-Wan walked back to their quarters, she spoke quietly. You think we are making a mistake. I think the Ravagers are not like other enemies you have faced, Taemin said. They do not care about your strength or your courage. They only care about consuming and moving on. You sound like you know them well. I know enemies who think differently, Taemin replied. Earth has faced many kinds of threats. Haewon stopped walking. She turned to face him fully. What were you before you became a diplomat, Taemin? You have never fully answered that question. Taemin met her gaze steadily. I was a public servant. I served my people in the capacity they needed. It was not a lie, but it was not the whole truth either. Haewon studied him for a long moment. Then she nodded. Very well, keep your secrets, but know this. When the battle comes, you will be safe. That is all that matters to me. And you, Taemin said softly, your safety matters to me as well. That night, Taemin could not sleep. He stood on the balcony looking up at the stars. Somewhere out there, death was coming. The Ravagers would arrive, and people would die. Daewon appeared beside him. The older man moved quietly. You are thinking about the battle. Yes, they will not listen to us. Not until it is too late. I know, Taemin said, but perhaps when the moment comes, they will see. We can only be ready. Ready to do what we were trained to do, Daewon agreed. They stood in silence, two humans far from home, waiting for war to arrive. The alarms woke everyone in the palace. It was a deep, pulsing sound that echoed through every corridor and chamber. Taemin was already awake, already dressed. He had been expecting this. Haewon was pulling on her battle armor, her forearms moving with practiced efficiency. The armor was thick and black, reinforced with metal plating. She looked like a warrior goddess preparing for war. The Ravagers? Taemin asked, though he knew the answer. They are here, ahead of schedule. Haewon's voice was tight. The fleet is scrambling to defensive positions. I must go to the flagship immediately. I am coming with you, Taemin said. Haewon turned sharply. No, we discussed this. You will go to the secure bunker with the other non-combatants. I am your mate, Taemin said calmly. Where you go, I go. That is what our bond means. Taemin, this is not the time for— I will not hide while you face danger, he interrupted. His voice was still calm, but there was steel beneath it. You can order me to stay. I will obey, but it will shame both of us. A mate who abandons their partner in battle is not worthy of respect. Haewon stared at him. Around them, guards were rushing through the corridors. Time was running out. She made a decision. Fine. You may come to the flagship, but you will stay on the command deck. You will not go anywhere near combat. Do you understand? I understand, Taemin said. They moved quickly through the palace. Ambassador Daewon was waiting near the landing platform, along with several other human diplomats. They all wore the same calm expression, the same ready stance. Wu Jin was there too, wearing his combat armor. He looked nervous but determined. When he saw Taemin, relief flashed across his face. I am assigned to protect you during the battle, Wu Jin said. I will not let anything happen to you. Thank you, my friend, Taemin replied. The shuttle ride to the flagship was tense. Through the windows, they could see the Vermian fleet forming up. Hundreds of warships, each one bristling with weapons. It was an impressive sight, a display of raw power. But Taemin could also see the Ravager fleet on the distant scanners. It was not organized like the Vermian fleet. It moved like a living thing, shifting and flowing. There was no clear formation, no obvious command structure, just a swarm of hungry ships moving toward their target. The flagship was called the Crushing Fist. It was enormous, nearly 2 miles long, covered in armor and weapon batteries. The command deck was at the center, a large room filled with tactical displays and control stations. General Nari was already there, shouting orders. When she saw Taemin enter with the Queen, her expression soured. But she said nothing. There was no time for arguments. Haiwan took her position at the command throne, a raised platform that gave her a view of all the displays. Taimin stood to the side with Wu Jin and Daewon out of the way but able to see everything. "Report!" Haiwan commanded. "Ravager fleet is in attack range," an officer called out. 342 ships detected. Composition: swarm fighters, heavy breakers, and one mothership. "Formation?" Nari asked. "No clear formation, General. They are moving in coordinated chaos." "We cannot predict their attack vectors." Nari's face hardened. "All ships attack formation Delta. We go straight at their center, break their formation with our heavy cruisers." Taimin watched the tactical display. The Vermian ships were moving into a spearhead formation, preparing to punch through the Ravager swarm. It was a bold move, very Vermian. But the Ravagers were not fighting like a traditional fleet. As the two forces collided, the battle became chaos. The Ravagers did not try to match the Vermian formation. Instead, they flowed around it like water around stone. Their smaller ships swarmed the Vermian cruisers, attacking from all sides. The heavy breaker ships targeted the Vermian engines and weapons, trying to cripple rather than destroy. On the command deck, alarms were blaring. "Multiple breaches on the port side. Shield generators failing on decks 9 through 12. "Return fire," Nari shouted. "Concentrate all forward batteries on their center mass." But there was no center mass. The Ravagers were everywhere and nowhere. They would cluster, attack, then scatter before the Vermian could bring their heavy guns to bear. Taimin could see the pattern now. The Ravagers were not trying to win through strength. They were using speed and numbers, wearing down the Vermian fleet through constant harassment. "They are coordinating through the mothership," Taimin said quietly to Daewon. "See how they move? It is not random. There is a rhythm to it." Daewon nodded. "Every attack is timed. They are like a pack of hunters." Wu Jin was listening. "Should we tell the general?" Taimin glanced at Nari, who was barking orders and clearly overwhelmed. She would not listen, not now. The battle raged for over an hour. The Vermian fleet was holding its own, but barely. Ships were taking damage. The Ravagers seemed endless. Then the situation changed. "Warning! Kamikaze squadron breaking through the defensive line," an officer shouted. "They are heading directly for the flagship." Everyone on the command deck tensed. Through the windows, they could see a dozen Ravager ships speeding toward them, ignoring all incoming fire. They were going to ram. "Brace for impact," Haiwan commanded. The first impact shook the entire ship. Alarms screamed. The lights flickered. A second impact hit the lower decks. A third struck near the engine section. "Boarding pods attached!" another officer cried out. "Multiple breach points. They are inside the ship." Nari immediately began issuing orders. "All security teams to breach points. Repel the boarders. The Queen must be protected." The command deck doors sealed shut, heavy blast doors slamming into place. But Taimin could hear sounds from beyond those doors. Fighting, screaming, the clash of weapons against armor. Haiwan stood from her throne. "Status of the boarders? Decks 4 through 7 are compromised," an officer reported. "They are moving toward the command deck. Security teams are engaged but taking heavy casualties." The Ravagers were 12-foot-tall creatures that looked like a nightmare combination of insect and reptile. They had blade-like limbs that could cut through Vermian armor. Their bodies secreted acid that burned through metal, and they felt no fear, no hesitation. Outside the sealed doors, the sounds of battle grew closer. "They will breach this room within minutes," Nari said grimly. She drew her weapons, all 4 hands holding blades. "All warriors, prepare for close combat. Protect the Queen at all costs." Taimin looked at Wu Jin. The young Vermian was pale but ready, his weapon drawn. Taimin placed a hand on his shoulder. "Stay close to me. Do exactly as I do." Wu Jin nodded, confused but trusting. Daewon moved to stand beside Taemin. The older man's face had changed. The diplomat's calm was still there, but there was something else now, something cold and focused. The blast doors began to glow red as the Ravagers burned through them from the outside. Everyone on the command deck tensed, ready for the inevitable assault. Haewon moved toward Taemin. "Get behind me. When they break through, I will hold them off long enough for you to escape through the emergency hatch." "No," Taemin said. "That is an order," Haewon snapped. "I cannot obey that order," Taemin replied. His voice was still calm, but something had shifted in his posture. He was standing differently now, balanced and centered. His hands were relaxed at his sides, but there was readiness in every line of his body. The blast doors exploded inward. Molten metal sprayed across the command deck. Through the smoke and fire, the Ravagers came. They were monsters, each one massive and terrifying. Their blade limbs gleamed. Their mandibles clicked with hunger. They had broken through 3 security checkpoints to reach this room, and they were covered in the blood of Vermion warriors. There were 8 of them. They spread out, looking for targets. The Vermion guards charged to meet them. The clash was immediate and brutal, but the Ravagers were too fast, too savage. Within seconds, 2 guards were down. Nari engaged one directly, her 4 blades flashing, but even she was being pushed back. One Ravager broke through the defensive line. It spotted Taemin, small and apparently helpless, standing away from the main fighting. It charged directly at him, blade limbs raised for the kill. Haewon screamed. She tried to turn, tried to reach Taemin in time, but another Ravager blocked her path. The creature was 10 feet away, then 5, then 3. Then Taemin moved. It was not a panicked scramble or a desperate dodge. It was precise, controlled, and devastatingly efficient. He shifted his weight, angled his body, and let the Ravager's blade limb pass within inches of his chest. The creature's own momentum carried it forward off balance. Taemin's hand moved almost too fast to see. He struck the Ravager's joint, the weak point where the blade limb connected to the body. The creature's limb went limp. Before it could recover, Taemin had scooped up a blade from a fallen guard. In one smooth motion, he drove it into the Ravager's neural cluster, located at the base of its skull. The creature collapsed instantly, dead. The entire command deck froze. Everyone had seen it. Taemin, the soft human, the weak consort, had just killed a Ravager in single combat. Taemin pulled the blade free and turned toward the other Ravagers. His expression was calm. His stance was ready. "Wu Jin," he said quietly. "Left side. Daewon, cover right." The 2 moved into position without question. Daewon had also acquired a weapon. He moved with the same efficient precision as Taemin. 3 more Ravagers turned toward them, seeing fresh prey. Haewon stared, all 4 arms frozen in shock. Her mate, her fragile human mate, was preparing to fight. The 3 Ravagers approached together, learning from their fallen companion's mistake. They spread out, trying to surround the small group of humans and the young Vermion warrior. Their blade limbs clicked and scraped against the metal floor. Taemin's eyes tracked all 3 simultaneously. His breathing was controlled, steady. This was not his first battle. It was not even his 100th. "Wu Jin, when the one on the left strikes, drop low and cut at its legs," Taemin said quietly. "Do not try to match its strength. Use its momentum against it." Yes," Wu Jin stammered, gripping his weapon tighter. The Ravagers attacked. They moved fast, blade limbs whistling through the air. To most observers, it would have looked like a chaotic rush. But Taemin saw the pattern. He saw which one would strike first, where the openings would be. The leftmost Ravager lunged at Wu Jin. The young Vermion did exactly as instructed, dropping low. His blade caught the creature's leg joint. It stumbled. Before it could recover, Taemin was there, his blade finding the neural cluster with surgical precision. The second Ravager went for Day One. The older human moved like water, flowing around the attack. His counterstrike was not powerful, but it was perfectly placed, hitting a weak point in the creature's carapace. The Ravager screeched and pulled back. Day One pressed the advantage, finishing it with a thrust to its eye cluster. The third Ravager hesitated, suddenly uncertain. These small creatures were not behaving like prey. They were behaving like predators. Taemin did not give it time to think. He moved in, his movements a blur of controlled aggression. He struck not at the creature's strong points, but at its joints, its sensory organs, its neural pathways. Every strike had purpose. Every movement was economy itself. Within 30 seconds, the third Ravager was dead. The command deck was silent except for the alarms and the distant sounds of battle elsewhere on the ship. Everyone was staring at Taemin. Na-Ri stood with her 4 blades lowered, mouth open in shock. The other officers had stopped what they were doing. Even the remaining Ravagers seemed confused. Taemin turned to face the other creatures still in the room. There were 4 left, currently engaged with Vermian guards. His expression was calm, but his eyes were sharp and focused. "Hey, Wan," he said, his voice carrying across the deck. "Permission to engage?" The Queen could not speak. She simply nodded. Taemin moved. What followed was like watching a dance, brutal and beautiful in equal measure. He did not fight like the Vermian, with power and aggression. He fought like water finding cracks in stone. Every movement served a purpose. He wasted no energy, no motion. He saved a guard who was about to be overwhelmed, appearing at just the right moment to strike the Ravager's blind spot. He coordinated with Nari, drawing a creature's attention so she could land a killing blow. He moved through the chaos with absolute confidence, as if he had done this 1,000 times before, because he had. Daewin fought beside him, the 2 humans working in perfect synchronization. They communicated with glances and small gestures, a shorthand developed through years of training together. Within 5 minutes, all the Ravagers on the command deck were dead. Taemin stood in the center of the room, breathing hard but controlled. There was green blood on his blade, green blood spattered across his diplomatic robes, but he was unhurt. Wu Jin was staring at him with something like awe. You are a warrior." "I was," Taemin replied quietly. He walked over to Haewon, who had not moved. "Are you injured?" She shook her head slowly. All 4 of her arms were trembling slightly. "Who are you?" "I am Taemin," he said simply. "Your mate, Earth's diplomat. But yes, I was also a soldier once, before I chose another path." Nari found her voice. It was rough, shaken. "You lied to us. You said you had no combat training." "I said I was a diplomat," Taemin corrected gently. "That is true. But on Earth, many of our diplomats come from military backgrounds. We send our warriors to negotiate peace because we understand the true cost of war." "What kind of soldier were you?" Haewon asked. Taemin met her eyes. The kind they sent when talking was not enough. Special operations, hostage rescue, situations that required precision and control rather than overwhelming force. "All human diplomats have this training?" Nari demanded. Daewon stepped forward. "Not all, but many of us served before we took diplomatic roles. Earth has been at war with itself for most of its history. We have learned to be very, very good at it." An officer interrupted, his voice urgent. "General, the battle is still ongoing. The fleet needs orders." Nari seemed to shake herself out of her shock. She moved back to the tactical displays, but she kept glancing at Taemin. The situation was not good. The Vermian fleet was holding its own, but casualties were mounting. Ships were being damaged faster than they could repair. The Ravager swarm seemed endless. Taemin moved to the display, studying it with trained eyes. Now that his secret was revealed, he did not hold back his observations. "They are coordinating through the mothership," he said, pointing at the massive vessel hanging back from the main battle. See the pattern? Every attack wave starts when that ship pulses. It is sending commands. Nari looked at where he was pointing. We have noticed the pulses, but we thought they were simply power fluctuations. They are more than that, Taemin said. The Ravagers do not think independently in battle. They are a hive mind. Cut off the command signals, and they will lose coordination. How do you know this? Haywan asked. Because Earth fought enemies like this before, Taemin replied. Different species, but similar tactics. Swarm intelligence, coordinated attacks, overwhelming numbers. We learned how to counter it. And how is that? Nari asked. Her tone was no longer dismissive. She was listening. You do not try to fight the entire swarm. You target the control center, cut off the head, and the body dies. Taemin manipulated the display, showing the mother ship's position. That vessel is heavily protected, but it is also stationary. If we could get a small team aboard, we could disable it from within. That is suicide, an officer said. The mothership is surrounded by defensive ships. We would lose a fleet trying to reach it. Not if we do not send a fleet, Taemin said. A small insertion team using a damaged Ravager boarding pod to approach. They would think it is one of their own. Once aboard, the team makes its way to the command center and plants explosives. The command deck was silent. Everyone was considering the plan. It was risky, incredibly so. But it might work. Who would lead this team? Haywan asked, though she already knew the answer. I would, Taemin said. No. Haywan's voice was absolute. I just discovered you are a warrior. I will not lose you immediately after. Your Majesty, Taemin said formally. With respect, I am the most qualified person here for this mission. This is exactly the type of operation I was trained for. Infiltration, sabotage, working behind enemy lines. He is right, Daewon added. On Earth we call it asymmetric warfare, using skill and precision instead of brute force. It is how humans have survived against stronger enemies for thousands of years. Nari crossed her arms. Even if we agree to this plan, you cannot go alone. You would need support. I will go with him, Daewon said immediately. And I, Wu Jin added, stepping forward. I may not have your training, but I learn quickly. You saved my life. Let me return the favor. 3 Vermian Special Forces, Nari said, making a decision. Our best infiltration specialists. They will accompany you. Taemin nodded. Acceptable. We will need explosives, breaching equipment, and... You are not going! Haywan's voice cut through the planning. All 4 of her hands slammed on the console. I am your queen and your mate. I order you to stay here where it is safe. Taemin turned to face her fully. When he spoke, his voice was gentle but firm. Haywan, I am your mate. That means I am also a leader of your people now. I cannot ask them to trust human strategies without showing I am willing to risk everything for them. This is who I am. This is what I was trained to do. You could die, she said, and there was pain in her voice. Yes, he agreed. But if I do nothing, we all die. The Ravagers will not stop. You know this. Haywan looked at him for a long moment. She saw him clearly now, perhaps for the first time. Not a fragile diplomat to be protected, but a warrior who had chosen peace. A man who understood both violence and restraint. I hate this, she said finally. I know, Taemin replied, but trust me, this is what humans do. We survive against impossible odds by being clever, adaptable, and willing to take risks others will not. Haywan closed her eyes. When she opened them, she was no longer speaking as a worried mate, but as a queen. Very well. General Nari, prepare the insertion team. Get them whatever they need. Nari nodded crisply. At once, Your Majesty. She looked at Taemin with new respect. Human, You have my apology. I underestimated your kind. No apology needed, Taemin said. You only saw what we showed you. That was intentional. Why hide your strength? An officer asked. Because we needed allies, not rivals, Taemin explained. If the Vermian had seen us as warriors, you might have seen us as threats. We wanted to be partners, not competitors. Nari actually smiled at that. It was a fierce expression. Clever. Very clever. You humans are more dangerous than you appear. We have to be, Daewon said simply. We are small and weak by galactic standards, so we learn to be smart instead. The preparations took an hour. Taemin and his team gathered their equipment. The 3 Vermian special forces were professionals, elite warriors chosen for their skill rather than just their strength. They listened to Taemin's briefing without complaint. Before the team departed, Haiwan took Taemin aside. They stood in a small antechamber off the command deck. Come back to me, she said. It was not an order. It was a plea. I will do everything I can, Taemin promised. He reached up and touched her face. His hand was small against her massive features, but the gesture was tender. But if something happens, know that I chose this, and I chose you. I should have seen, Haiwan said. The signs were there, the way you moved, the way you thought. I was blind. You saw what you needed to see, Taemin replied. A partner who cared for you. That was real. Everything else was just preparation. They held each other for a moment. Then Taemin pulled away and joined his team. As they boarded the captured Ravager pod, Wu Jin whispered to one of the Vermian specialists. Are all humans like this? The specialist, a scarred warrior named Bo-Ra, shook her head. I do not know, but I hope we never have to fight them. The pod launched into the chaos of battle, heading toward the mothership. On the command deck, Haiwan watched it go, her heart heavy with fear and pride in equal measure. The Ravager boarding pod drifted through the battle zone, appearing to be just another piece of debris among thousands. Inside, the infiltration team sat in tense silence. The interior smelled of acid and decay, residue from the creatures that had previously occupied it. Taemin was running final checks on their equipment. Explosives, breaching charges, communication devices. Everything had to be perfect. There would be no second chances. Bo-Ra, the Vermian specialist, was watching him work. You have done this before, many times. It was not a question, but Taemin answered anyway. Yes, different enemies, different worlds, but the principle is always the same. Get in, complete the objective, get out. And if we cannot get out, asked Junho, another Vermian specialist. Then we make sure the objective is completed anyway, Taemin said simply. Wu Jin looked nervous but determined. The young warrior had insisted on coming despite having no infiltration training. But he was brave, and he learned quickly. Those qualities mattered. Daewon was sitting with his eyes closed, breathing slowly. To an outside observer, he might have appeared to be sleeping, but Taemin recognized the meditation technique. Daewon was centering himself, preparing mentally for what was to come. Approaching the mothership, the pilot announced. She was the third specialist, a woman named Su Jin, who had trained in covert operations. Debris field is thick. We should be able to slip through unnoticed. The pod shook as it passed through scattered wreckage. Through the small viewport, they could see the mothership growing larger. It was massive, easily 3 times the size of the Vermian flagship. Its surface was covered in organic-looking armor plating, with hundreds of smaller Ravager ships attached to it like parasites. There, Taemin said, pointing at an opening in the hull. That looks like a hangar bay. Can you get us in there? Su Jin studied the approach. It will be tight, but yes. Once we are inside, we will only have minutes before they realize we are not one of theirs. Then we move fast, Taemin said. He looked at each team member in turn. Remember the plan. Stay quiet, stay together, and do not engage unless necessary. Our goal is the command center, nothing else. The pod slipped into the hangar bay without incident. The moment they touched down, the team was moving. They exited quickly, weapons ready. The interior of the mothership was like a nightmare. The walls were organic, pulsing with a faint light. The floor was soft and gave slightly under their feet. The air was hot and humid, difficult to breathe. And there were ravagers everywhere. The creatures moved through the corridors in groups, completely focused on their tasks. They were workers, not warriors, but they were still dangerous. Each one was large enough to kill any team member in close combat. "Follow me," Taemin whispered. "Stay in the shadows. Move when they are not looking." What followed was a tense journey through alien corridors. The team moved like ghosts, using every bit of cover, timing their movements perfectly. When a ravager turned their direction, they froze. When the way was clear, they advanced. Bo-Ra was impressed despite herself. She had trained for years in stealth operations, but Tai-Min moved with a natural grace that came from extensive experience. He seemed to know instinctively when to move and when to wait. They reached a large chamber filled with organic machinery. Pulses of light ran through tubes in the walls, creating a rhythm. This was some kind of nerve center, but not the main one. "The command center should be above us," Daewon said, consulting a small scanner. 3 levels up. "There," Junho pointed at a shaft in the ceiling. "We can climb." They ascended carefully, moving through organic tunnels that felt uncomfortably like being inside a living creature. The pulses of light grew stronger, more frequent. Then they heard voices. Not human or vermian voices, but the clicking, scraping sounds of Ravager communication. The team froze. Around the corner, 4 Ravager warriors stood guard. These were not workers. They were fully armed, their blade limbs sharp and ready. "We cannot go around," Sujin whispered. "This is the only path." Taemin made a series of quick hand signals. The team spread out, understanding his plan without words. They would strike simultaneously, taking down all 4 guards before any could raise an alarm. Taemin counted down on his fingers. 3, 2, 1. They moved as one. Taemin and Daewon took the first 2 guards, their strikes precise and silent. Bo-Ra and Junho handled the other 2. Wu Jin provided cover, ready to intercept any that broke free. It was over in seconds, 4 Ravager warriors dead without a sound. "Keep moving," Taemin urged. "We are running out of time." They finally reached the command center. It was a large chamber at the heart of the mothership, filled with pulsing organic computers and several massive Ravagers that appeared to be commanders. These creatures were larger than the warriors, with additional limbs and more complex sensory organs. "Those are the ones controlling the swarm," Daewon said. "If we kill them and destroy this equipment, the coordination will fail." "How long will the explosives take to plant?" Bo-Ra asked. 3 minutes, Taemin replied. "Maybe 4 if we are careful." "We do not have 4 minutes," Sujin said urgently. "Look!" One of the Ravager commanders had turned toward their hiding spot. Its sensory organs were twitching, scanning. It had detected something wrong. "We are compromised," Taemin said. "New plan. Junho, Sujin, plant the explosives. The rest of us will buy you time." "That is suicide," Wu Jin protested. "No," Taemin said with grim certainty. "It is just very dangerous. There is a difference." He stepped out into the open before anyone could argue further. The Ravager commanders saw him immediately and shrieked a warning. Warriors began pouring into the chamber from all sides. Taemin moved into combat mode, his mind calm and focused. This was what he had trained for. Against impossible odds, fighting enemies stronger and more numerous, winning through skill and determination. Daewon was beside him, the 2 humans working in perfect coordination. Bo-Ra and Wu-Jin formed a defensive line, holding back the flood of Ravagers. Behind them, Jun-Ho and Su-Jin worked frantically to place the explosives on the organic computers and around the Commander Ravagers. The fighting was desperate. Taemin could feel his muscles screaming, his breathing becoming labored. They were outnumbered 20-1. But they held the line. A blade limb caught Daewon across the shoulder. The older man grunted in pain but kept fighting. Bo-Ra took a hit to her leg, green blood mixing with her own blue blood. Still, they held. "Charge is set," Su-Jin called out. "We have 30 seconds. "Fall back," Taemin ordered. "Everyone move." They ran. Behind them, the Ravagers pursued, shrieking in rage. The team sprinted through corridors, taking turns they had memorized during the approach. Wu-Jin stumbled, his injured leg giving out. Taemin grabbed him without breaking stride, hauling the young Vermian along. 10 seconds! Daewon shouted. They threw themselves into a side chamber, piling into cover. Taemin pulled Wu-Jin down just as the explosives detonated. The blast was enormous. It tore through the command center, destroying the organic computers and killing the Commander Ravagers. The shockwave rippled through the entire mothership. On the flagship, Hae-Won saw it happen. The mothership's energy readings suddenly became erratic. The pulses that had been coordinating the Ravager fleet stopped, and the Ravager swarm immediately fell into chaos. Ships that had been moving in perfect coordination suddenly crashed into each other. Attack patterns dissolved. The hive-mind connection was severed, and the individual Ravagers did not know how to function independently. "All ships, press the attack," Nari commanded, seeing the opportunity. "They have lost cohesion. Strike now." The Vermian fleet surged forward with renewed energy. Against a disorganized enemy, their superior firepower was devastating. Ravager ships were destroyed by the dozens, then by the hundreds. Back on the mothership, Taemin's team was fighting their way to the extraction point. The corridors were collapsing around them, the organic structure dying without its command center. Ravagers fled in panic, no longer attacking with coordination. They reached the hangar bay. Their pod was still there, waiting. Su-Jin started the engines while the others piled in. Daewon was bleeding badly from his shoulder wound. Bo-Ra's leg was barely functional, but they were alive. The pod launched just as the hangar bay began to collapse. They shot out into space, dodging falling debris and dying Ravagers. "Command, this is Insertion Team," Taemin spoke into the communicator. "Mission accomplished. Requesting pickup." Hae-Won's voice came through immediately. "We see you. Hold your position. A recovery ship is coming." The mothership was breaking apart now, massive pieces of it exploding as its systems failed. The remaining Ravager fleet, leaderless and confused, was being systematically destroyed by the Vermian forces. The battle was over. They had won. The recovery took 15 minutes. When Taemin stepped off the pod and back onto the flagship, Hae-Won was waiting. She did not care about protocol or dignity. She pulled him into a crushing embrace with all 4 arms. "You came back," she said. "I promised I would try," Taemin replied, his voice muffled against her armor. Around them, the command deck erupted in cheers. The Vermian warriors, who had once mocked the small human, were now celebrating him as a hero. Nari approached, her expression serious. "Human. Taemin, I was wrong about your people. Completely wrong. You are not weak. You are perhaps the most dangerous species I have ever encountered." "Only when we need to be," Taemin said. "We prefer peace. But we learned long ago how to survive when peace is not possible." "Your strategies saved us," Nari continued. "If we had continued fighting the Vermian way, we would have lost, but you showed us a different way. A human way." "Not just a human way," Taemin corrected gently. "The smart way, using your strengths, targeting enemy weaknesses, adapting to the situation. These are universal principles." "Will you teach us?" Nari asked. "Will you help train our forces in these tactics?" Taemin looked at Hae-Won, who nodded. "I will," he said. if that is what the Alliance needs. The weeks that followed were transformative. Taemin and the other human diplomats began working with Vermian military academies, teaching courses on asymmetric warfare, infiltration tactics, and strategic thinking beyond direct confrontation. The Vermian, who had always relied on their physical superiority, learned to think like humans. They learned to be clever, to use misdirection, to strike at weak points, rather than always meeting strength with strength. And they learned to respect humans, not as weak creatures needing protection, but as partners whose skills complemented their own. 6 months after the battle, Taemin stood in the palace gardens with Haiwan. It was evening, and the 3 moons were rising over the horizon. "Do you regret it?" Haiwan asked. "Revealing what you are? You could have stayed hidden, stayed safe?" "No," Taemin said. "I regret nothing. This is who I am, both diplomat and warrior, both seeker of peace and fighter when necessary. You needed to see all of me, not just the parts I chose to show." "I am glad I do see you now," Haiwan said. "All of you, though I admit you are far more terrifying than I expected." Taemin laughed. "Humanity has always been terrifying. We are small and weak, yes, but we are also persistent, adaptable, and absolutely refuse to give up. We have fought our way up from primitive hunters to spacefaring civilization. Nothing has ever stopped us for long." "The galaxy should be grateful you prefer peace," Haiwan observed. "The galaxy should be grateful we have learned the cost of endless war," Taemin corrected. "Earth's history is soaked in blood. We have fought each other for thousands of years. We know what war does. That is why we value peace so highly now, not because we are weak, but because we understand strength." Wu Jin found them there, bringing news. The young warrior had become Taemin's close friend and student. "Master Taemin, the new Joint Task Force graduates today. They want you to speak at the ceremony." "Tell them I will be honored," Taemin replied. After Wu Jin left, Haiwan smiled. "Master Taemin, you have become a legend among my people." "I am just a man who did what was necessary," Taemin said. "The real legends are the soldiers who fight every day to protect what they love." "Spoken like a true warrior poet," Haiwan teased gently. They stood together in comfortable silence, looking up at the stars. Somewhere out there, other threats would arise, other challenges would come. But now, the Vermian and humans would face them together. The alliance was no longer one of protector and protected. It was a true partnership between equals. The Vermian had learned that strength comes in many forms, and humans had shown that even the smallest warrior can change the course of a war. As they walked back to the palace, hand in hand, Taemin thought about the journey that had brought him here. From soldier to diplomat to warrior again, to something new entirely. It had been unexpected, dangerous, and difficult. But looking at Haiwan, at the bond they had formed, at the alliance they had built together, he knew it had been worth it. The galaxy was learning a new truth, one that humans had known for millennia. Never underestimate the quiet ones. Never assume weakness means harmlessness. And never, ever back a human into a corner. Because when pushed, humanity does not break. It adapts. It overcomes. It survives. And sometimes it even thrives.